Here's a place I've wanted to come to for a long time. Kill Devil Hills in North Carolina, in the Outer Banks. And of course it's here where the Wright brothers had their first powered flight. I'm actually standing in front of the marker here where they took off, and there's a rail just sort of substituting for the original launch rail they had. And down there you see the three markers, four markers actually, 4 flights they took on that first day. The very first one's only 120 feet away, and the last one took a whole minute to fly down there in the 4th flight. So I love this stuff, partly because it's romantic, and there was a lot of romance that day, right? Observers watched these two brothers shake hands, toss their coin, and they knew that it was an important moment, not just because of the build-up, but because of all the emotion and the body language in that moment. Something momentous was going to happen that day. Now, we do tend to concentrate on that day, but what I love about this story is just how much more to it there was before and after that December 1903 date, when they did these 4 powered flights. If we just do a condensed version, go back to 1899, that's when they first started experimenting, first started to get earnest about it, first wrote away with the Smithsonian to get data tables on drag and lift and all those sorts of things, do their solid research. So they're starting to experiment, 1899, taking time out of their bicycle and printing business to do that. A year later, they journey from Dayton, Ohio, overland and then the last bit by boat to get here to Kill Devil Hills. It's a long trip. They've brought all of their gear with them. They've made all of the parts they can. They're assembling what they can here. There's nothing here but sand dunes and lots of wind, which is why they came, right? And you'll hear it on my microphone because the wind is consistent. They got that advice. So we've now got them coming here in 1900 for those first glider tests. And if we do a quick turnaround, you'll see there's a hill up there, turn around with the camera, and that's the hill in which they were doing their first glider tests, right down sort of those very, very steep banks. Now, lots of adversity, lots of near-death experiences. They didn't work very well. The first designs weren't very good. They were based on the tables they were sent, all the designs they could get off other people, plus their own early experiments. So they had to come back after that season's testing and do it again the following year, 1901, and then do it again in 1902, each time very frustrated, lots of adversity, dealing with mosquitoes and rats and storms, and they were living in tents. Then they had to build a hut instead, and if we pan again, you see these are replicas of the huts they built to house themselves and then eventually to have as a little hangar. And they're back and forth, eventually working out that all the data tables that they had are wrong. This is the bit I love the most. So they became mathematicians. They built a wind tunnel. They built their own lift and drag tables. They looked at their own chord shapes for wings, and they kept experimenting and experimenting and experimenting and iterating until they got a whole new set of designs that were basically much more workable, at least in model form. And they came back here and did it again. So now we're up to 1902 with their glider, doing all over new design, good results. Then they had to go back and make a motor to put on this thing with their colleague Charlie Taylor, who they employed in their bicycle shop. Built a whole new motor. No one had ever designed it before or done anything similar. It had to be very, very light. It used a lot of aluminium in it to make it even lighter. They had to build their own propellers, again using their new data tables, because they had to start from scratch, finding out everything was wrong that they had been given before. Only then did they come here, 1903, and shake hands, toss the coin, and Orville got into the Wright Flyer and did that first very short flight, and they took turns. So that's 4 years. Then they had to go back and try and get people to believe them, because no one did. Even in their hometown, the press wouldn't publish the story, sort of missed it completely. They had to go and get credibility. They had to go and convince people to give them contracts had to form a company. Eventually they got the US military behind them to do a demonstration, but before they did this demonstration, they had to come back here again and test their designs again. More near-death experiences. Finally they do a demonstration near Washington for the US military, get their contract. Wilbur goes off to France to do demonstrations there. Now everyone's seriously impressed. Finally they've got contracts. They've got the Wright company going. They've got patents happening. They're doing the first flight schools in Europe. They've got kings and queens and princesses and all sorts of luminaries coming along, doing joyrides for them as well. Now 1 hour long flights plus. It's 1909 and finally we've got everything being licensed out and an industry. So it's a 10-year story from the first little experimental kite to an industry. And of course, what, 66 years later we're on the moon, right? But I love that 10-year story because it's all out of two brothers out of Dayton, Ohio. They had a passion, a goal, yes. They had shared values, which no one talks about. These two had very, very strong values, and that's what's important in life. They didn't work on Sundays. They needed to be correct. They believed in social justice. They believed in learning for its own principles. They believed in family and all those values around. All those things kept them together. If two brothers didn't share those values, they would never have made it through those 10 years. Team, they had no hesitation in opening up and including others in their work. I mean, shouldn't every startup learn the same thing, right? They brought the locals in from Kitty Hawk. They involved Charlie Taylor, they involved other people. They actually wrote away for data and shared theirs and presented. And of course, later on, it closed up with patenting and so forth. But it was a very open process and lots of courage. And we all need that when we're doing innovation. But most importantly, more important than any of those things, a total commitment and determination to do whatever hard work was necessary. So, innovation in a microcosm in a beautiful romantic story. Hope that lifts your day a little bit. It certainly lifts mine being here.